Hey, welcome to my booth. I'm Jay, and this is Nigel, looking for any sort of vocal performance tips that we can come up with, how to use your voice better, as we might say. So we'll talk about that in a moment. If you'd like me to review your audio just like this and provide you tips and feedback, there's a form in the description. It's free. Send me something. If you want to get your feedback faster, you can join the booth buddies down below, or you can go to my website for one-on-one coaching. That's it. Thanks for being here. Thanks for clicking them our buttons. Let's take a listen, shall we?
Do you suffer from microphone anxiety? I know I do. It's that feeling you get sometimes that the microphone you're using could be better, and it's often caused by watching too many YouTube videos.
Okay, pausing real quick. You're sounding great, Nigel. I'm just going to turn the volume up a little bit, normalize everything to make it a little bit louder for me to hear and diagnose. And I've got some ideas. Overall, you've got a really good projection, I think, particularly for a space like this. And funny that you're talking about microphones, but in terms of voiceover in general, it's really easy to feel the need to be bigger for two reasons. A lot of us feel safer, myself included, when we put on a voice of some kind because that's less vulnerable. It's not me talking about that. And you don't fall into that trap, which I think is really, really great, not to be understated. So that's great, and stick with that. The ease of talking to another person, very relatable in that sense. The thing that I'm hearing that will help you, I think, the most in my initial listen through would be flow of breath and flow of your statements. So let's keep listening, and I'll talk a little bit more about what specifically I mean, and then some tips or tricks that we can put together to help you out.
When I first got into audio recording as a hobby, I watched a lot of reviews, but often I was confused because I heard more of a difference between reviewers than I did between the mics they were reviewing. I came to the conclusion that what I was listening to wasn't just the mic. It was a combination of the mic, the room, the reviewer's voice, and the rest of the audio signal processing chain.
So you've got to, again, this is a really good case of a natural flow, and the reason why it feels so personable, at least in my experience of it, is you have a good, if we were to chart the intonation of your voice in terms of the ups and downs of your pitch and how that flows with ideas, it would be a really natural, organic flow. So if we listen to just this first section.
When I first got into audio recording as a hobby, I watched a lot of reviews, but
When I first got into audio recording, I watched a lot of reviews, and so that sort of flow is really nice, and it's not manufactured here, so I'm not saying for anybody else, this is the sort of inflection that you should aim for. No, it comes from a connection between the breath and the idea and the speech. So in terms of the flow of your voice, which I was talking about initially, it comes from a combination of the flow of your breath and the flow of your speech out. Breath is tied to speech, obviously. So if we consider it a bellows or an accordion, our breathing apparatus, as we inhale, our lungs are filled with air, like an accordion being bellowed out or filled with air in that way. And critically here, we don't want that to be full of tension, and we don't want it to feel muscular. So it's easy with this sort of image to think about it being an effortful thing or something that requires conscious thought to breathe in, pull the bellows in, and really it's more like just letting the air fall into your body. So I'm just letting it fall in, and I'm putting a little bit of effort in so that it's demonstrated, but it's very easy and the air just comes in. And that breath in is inspired by, or that inspiration of breath is inspired by thought. So if I have an idea, I breathe in, and then that corresponding breath coming out informs the speech or is the communication of the thought. So I have the idea, now I can come in to speak. So if we're following the bellows there, and now I speak. Now the big turning point here, and what I think might help you, is right now your speech, you've got a really easy flow in, or a reasonably easy flow in, but at times your speech out or your exhale, as it were, is a little bit halting in certain ways. So if we listen to this first little section here, let me get back.
Do you suffer from microphone anxiety?
Do you suffer from microphone anxiety? And admittedly, that kind of feeds into your theme here, but as an example, rather than, do you suffer from microphone anxiety, where there's sort of three bursts that are a little bit constricted, if it's, do you suffer from microphone anxiety? It's one, do you suffer from microphone anxiety? And there's a transition point where you move from the inhale to speech, where I breathe in and then my air starts flowing out. And then when I breathe in again, it is even and there's a smooth motion between the two. So at the top of your inhale, if there's a moment where you hold before you come out and speak, we want to minimize or eliminate that as much as possible. And then conversely, at the bottom of your breath, when you're out of air and you're ready to take in another one, we don't want to hold at the bottom of our breath. So you can think of it sort of like a circle motion, where we breathe in and then we start speaking, and it's kind of hard for me to demonstrate. But as we keep talking, if that sort of thing happens, then it becomes more even, and it's sort of like an elliptical flow or motion. So all to say, that sort of flow or motion might be helpful for you to explore in connecting all of your thoughts a little bit better, just so there isn't that sort of halting, chopping of your ideas, as it were. And so an exercise you can do to do that is, or to work on that, is to breathe in and work on the flow out of your voice. And if there's ever a point where you feel yourself holding at the top before you breathe out or start speaking, just acknowledge that and go back and try to resolve that. So the easiest way to do this is I start with a few steps, and I'm going to go through these really quickly, but you should take them more slowly. The first is just check in with your breath. I often have a hand on my chest or my ribs or my stomach just to touch base with where my breath is, and then just breathe normally, not really thinking about it, just checking in with how my body's moving. And then from there, I'll move to sighing or breathing in for 5 and out for 5. And then adding on at the exhale, I'm going to sigh out. So that'll be, and the sigh out, again, isn't effortful. I'm not trying to force sound to happen. If sound doesn't happen, that's fine. We're working on that transition point where we go, and there's not a sort of thing, sounding kind of funny at this point. But then we move into counting, sighing into counting. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. Critically here, when I run out of air, I stop. I don't keep pushing to get more air out to get to a specific number. So the difference would be if I'm pushing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then if I'm not, 1, 2, 3. Very easy, very keeping in mind that flow. Then we'll work on adding a little bit more voice to it. Again, not pushing anything, allowing ourselves to stop when the breath is out. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then bringing in speech. So, to be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis no, blah, 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 blah. And so those are a few exercises that you can work on that help with that sort of flow of breath and connecting it a little bit more, particularly as you speak, to make sure everything's connected. Hope that's helpful for you and for everybody else out there as well. And until the next one of these, be well, everybody, and I'll see you there. Toodles.